Hi, my name is Bob Viscount, and I'm a graduate student in the Master of Science in Nutrition and Dietetics program here at King's College. Today, I wanted to chat with you about weight management and specifically the carnivore diet. Have you heard of it? I had seen this diet on my social media feed pretty often and wanted to learn more. I recently read a book by Paul Saladino called The Carnivore Code, where he talks about how plants could be preventing us from weight loss and eating a diet that only includes animals can help with weight loss. I'm going to spend a few minutes discussing what to eat on the carnivore diet, what components of a diet impact weight loss, cover the macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, share some research from randomized controlled trials, and finally leave you with some thoughts to determine if the carnivore diet is right for you. So let's get started. Now, the basics. What is a carnivore diet? When I picked up this book, it has a giant piece of steak on the front cover. And I like steak, so I thought, wow, is there a diet where I can eat this all the time? According to Paul Saladino, the answer is yes. In the Carnivore Code, he outlines the diet as being only animal products. That means meat and other animal tissue, organ meat, and eggs. That's it. He discusses ways to ease into this over 5 different stages, which begin with carnivore-ish, which is the least restrictive and includes plant foods as well, but emphasizes more meat. Now, the top tier is very restrictive and is only animal products. I'm going to go over a sample day from the Carnivore Code at this top varsity level. So for breakfast, 3 eggs cooked in tallow, 2 ounces of beef liver, 1 ounce of kidney, a 10-ounce New York strip steak with salt, and 14 ounces of raw goat milk. For lunch, 60 grams of beef trimmings, 4 ounces of scallops cooked in tallow, 2 ounces of bone marrow, and a half a teaspoon of bone meal. Dinner, 70 grams of beef trimmings, 10 ounces of a ribeye steak, 6 jumbo shrimp, and 8 ounces of bone broth. I love meat, but personally, I don't know if I could stick to that every day over and over again. Now, if you're anything like me, you might hear this description and think, don't I need some plants or fiber in my diet? According to Saladino, that's the point. He spends quite a bit of time demonizing plants for various reasons, mainly very specific biochemical pathways that theoretically could pose a risk to human health. At its core, the carnivore diet is an elimination diet. By this, I mean the diet purposefully removes anything that isn't part of an animal. This ends up being foods like plants, or foods that come from plants, like fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains. Translated into stuff you normally eat, this means things like bananas, broccoli, almonds. You get the point. The carnivore diet emphasizes protein and dietary fats and excludes carbohydrates. Remember that sample day of eating I just shared? This is an example day, but every day on the carnivore diet looks somewhat like this. So again, no fruits, no veggies, no nuts, no seeds, no grains. I want to take a little bit of a step back right now and ground everyone on macronutrients that make up the foods that we all eat. These are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And if you've ever checked out the back of a nutrition label, you might be familiar with these. Let's start with proteins. These can come from animal or plant sources, and they do wonders for our bodies. Some examples of things they do, they make up hormones, and gym bros might know protein as a macronutrient that is key to building muscle. Dietary fats can also come from both plants and animals, and these are helpful for providing us with energy, insulation and padding, and some neat stuff at the cellular level, like make up our cell membranes. Finally, carbohydrates. These are primarily through plant sources, but you can also find carbs in dairy. In short, carbohydrates provide us with energy. Our body is very efficiently set up to metabolize carbohydrates into something called glucose. And glucose is what our bodies use to create energy. Now, one quick detour here about using glucose for energy. What happens if there isn't any glucose, like in the carnivore diet? Saladino notes that the carnivore diet is a type of ketogenic diet since there are no carbohydrates and therefore no glucose. Perhaps you might have heard of the keto diet before. A ketogenic diet has a very low amount of carbohydrates in it, typically less than 50 grams per day and sometimes less than 25 grams per day. Now, you might be wondering, if there are no carbohydrates and therefore no glucose, how does our body get energy? Well, the body has an alternate setup when we don't have glucose from carbohydrates. The body can break down fat and convert it into something called a ketone that a body uses for energy in the absence of glucose. So, given that the carnivore diet is low, actually very low in carbohydrates, and a type of ketogenic diet, I wanted to learn how effective this type of diet is for weight loss compared to a diet that has a higher proportion of carbohydrates. I could not find a single study that looked at the carnivore diet compared to other diets when looking at weight loss as an outcome. Now, I was able to find quite a bit of literature that compared very low carbohydrate diets to diets that have a higher carbohydrate intake. What I found over and over again was that diets that are very low in carbohydrates and diets that have a higher proportion of carbohydrates can both help create weight loss. I found several examples showing that one option was not superior to the other if the trial was 6 to 12 months long. Ultimately, what mattered the most in all of these cases was a caloric deficit. So you might be wondering, what is a caloric deficit? Well, when you're consuming food, these contain calories, and calories are just a measurement of energy. But the amount of calories that you expend each day, if it's equal to the amount of calories you consume each day, this is called energy balance, and it will typically keep you weight neutral. This means that you're not losing or you're not gaining weight, and you're roughly the same day to day with small amounts of variation. However, if you lower your calories consistently over time below your maintenance calories, you will be in an energy deficit, or also called a caloric deficit. This is one way weight loss can be achieved. And I do want to point out, I'm oversimplifying this for the sake of this podcast format so that we can just focus on the diet portion of it, because there's a lot more that goes into it. So now back to the carnivore diet, as well as some other options. The take-home message is whether people eat carbs or don't eat carbs, either option is viable for weight loss. The idea that fruits, vegetables, grains, or carbohydrates in general somehow prevent weight loss from happening is simply not supported by human trials. In closing, if you are thinking about the carnivore diet for weight loss, consider that it is one option. However, other options that do not eliminate foods, food groups, or entire macronutrients are also viable for weight loss. There are certainly other well-rounded diet patterns that can help achieve weight loss. You should consider things like your personal preferences, likes and dislikes, and the fact that there is room for all foods in a healthy eating pattern when choosing a diet. Thanks so much for listening to this chat about the carnivore diet. I hope you now understand this diet, the macronutrients we discussed, which were carbohydrates, dietary fats, and protein, as well as the results from some clinical trials comparing very low carbohydrate diets to higher proportion of carbohydrate diets. My goal was to give you the information I learned so you can make the best decision for you. If you have any questions, you can email me at robertviscount@kings.edu. I hope you have a great day.